Welcome again to another exciting episode of the Extraordinary Man Podcast. You guys should know by now, if you have been tuning in, what my name is. But if you don't know what my name is, let me introduce you to what my name is. I am Phil Jones, Mike Jones, have you know me personally, professionally. I am the host of the Extraordinary Man Podcast. And you guys know, you know what? He is not the co-host of the Extraordinary Man Podcast. He is the anchor of the Extraordinary Podcast. He is going to take the reins this morning and going to show you guys that this is the double dragon effect, that you can't have one without the other. So with that being said, I'm the co-host of the Extraordinary Man Podcast, and introducing the anchor, the number one. I had to bring him in on some Johnny Carson stuff. State your name.
Man, what is going on, man? I am an 80's baby, and the 90's raised me. I am Midas. Make sure you put a king in front of that. Let's go.
Hold on. Let's do this. Let's do this the right way. You got it.
Hey.
I'm taking the back seat today, baby. You got it.
80's baby, 90's raised me, man. Let's talk about it. So, but before we get deep into the meat and potatoes we'll be talking about, I kind of want to go through memory lane real quick and just talk about the things that were normal in the 80's and 90's. Okay, I'm gonna just run through a small list. So we got in the 80's, man, we had phone books. People we had phone books.
Starting off trip.
we had pay phones sitting on a corner. We had magazine posters where posters actually came in the magazines. Water beds. Okay. Blockbuster was still popping. MTV music.
The box.
The box.
The box.
Cabbage Patch dolls. They weren't called kids yet. They were called dolls. Indoor smoking was cool. We still kind of got shopping malls, but shopping malls was like booming in the 80's. We were still using paper maps. 90's, at least to me, this is when we had like the surge of like all different types of toys and inventions and all that. So you had your Beanie Babies, you had your Tamagotchis, your slap braces, your Furbies, your Polly Pockets. You had all that going on around that time. This is when the Super Soakers was popular.
Yo, son. Come on, man. No. Don't even be tripping. Eureka's Castle, son.
What? Come on, dog.
Son.
Talk about it.
Gotta catch them all. Pokemon.
Man, you had the original Space Jam, Home Alone, Jumanji. I mean, the original Ninja Turtles, like the original Power Rangers. All right, that's enough. Enough memory lane. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so today we talking about our standards today versus how it was back in the 80's and 90's. Now, when I was growing up, you know, I was definitely taught hard work. Definitely make sure that you're able to feed yourself, provide for yourself. I watched my dad work day in and day out, and to this day, he still works day in and day out. That's just what he do. You know, he loves what he does. He loves his business. He's a carpenter by trade, but man, the man can fix anything. He can build a house from the ground up. He can build a car from the ground up. You name it, he can do it. So he takes pride in his work. And I watched this man, you know, go to work every single day. And he took me along. Hey, man, look, here go this hammer. I need you to take this hammer. I need you to do that. So the standard of, you know, self-awareness, developing yourself, and also coming from, you know, my mother, you know, how you supposed to speak to a lady, how you're supposed to treat a lady, hold the door open, and everything else that goes along with that. These were standards, normalized standards that we had back then. Now, today, what you think, Mike?
Well, first things first is like I want to spend a little bit of time in our upbringing because of
Hmm.
the fact that we were still the generation that had to go outside. We were a generation that we had to actually experience things. And because of the fact that we had to experience a lot of things head on, there was a lot of stuff that we were exposed to that prepared us for some semblance of what the real world was. You know, I think that before we even go into the standards of yesterday, I think that, well, in the standards of today, I
Of
think that
today,
you said what?
and the standards of, well, you already said it.
Well, yeah,
Yesteryear.
I want to emphasize the standards of yesterday because I think that it's such a huge thing. And the reason being is because of the fact that what we were exposed to back then helped mold and shape the type of gentleman that you guys are looking at today. Because we got to watch so many transitions come into play and we learned how to adapt to those transitions. We weren't just giving them, we had to learn how to appreciate them as we got them. So,
Yeah, you're right.
so when we started, like as far as the independent woman, so to speak, I think that the talk was a lot less focused on independent womanhood. I believe that, and again, hindsight is 2020, but I believe that most of the young women that we were raised around, they were the effects of the single parent home. And we watched what happened to them. We watched the rise of the latchkey kid. We watched the rise of the the daughter who was like the parent, who mom was at work or the parents were at work, and then she would basically be caring for the younger siblings. Like we watched that happen, and we didn't see, or obviously we had no idea of knowing the effect that that was going to have on their personalities and oh, I could do it bad all by myself, because they were basically moms before they ever had children.
Hold on, hold that thought. So let's talk about how we were the ones that had to go outside. Like we had to experience these things. Now the experience, of course, that we had is I feel like that we was in a sweet spot because we was able to see kind of like a shift in technology. So we were at the end, kind of close to the end of where they were phasing out the old tech, bringing in the new tech. So we actually got to see the rise of technology. Computers where you used to have the big fat CRT monitors, the big ginormous fat tower, to down to where now we got like these little small cell phones now. Like we saw the rise of all of that. Going outside was a good one.
Well,
You know,
one huge one, one huge one, and I might be jumping the gun on this, but there was no internet data. You actually had to have a personality and talk to people.
yeah. You actually
Actually,
had to, yeah.
like you could easily differentiate the haves and have-nots, or the who was and who wasn't. You actually had to develop a personality. You had to have something of value to talk about because of the fact that a girl would clown you in real time. You couldn't create some persona for yourself in online or dress the part and look the part because you'll get picked apart in a social setting. You actually had to be somebody to be at the top of the food chain. You couldn't pretend.
And that's why I was segueing into like where we actually had to be outside. We had to be interactive. You had no choice. There was no keyboard warrior back then. So yeah, absolutely. So I don't know, man. I love the 90's, man. You know what I'm saying? Water balloons, the parks, you know what I'm saying? It was all fantastic, man. But it's like, where did all that go? Like why do you think that we got away from standards, or why do we deviate away from standards back then that worked so well, it seemed to flourish so well, to now looking at today? Like, why do you think that those standards went away?
Society worked very hard on ensuring that a lot of the things that the 80s and 90s taught us did not happen to the 2000s kid. One of which was tough love, competition, and so forth. So for somebody like myself, who I was not top food chain, I was sick, super skinny. So I wasn't the most athletic person that there was. So, I had my thing. We did what we did, but at the same time, it was just like you had to really find your thing. You had to know what you were good at. And now in this generation, to where it is far less competitive, you don't have to particularly be great at anything. Someone will make an excuse for you. We're at
I think that's a real good one. Now, when we were growing up, and I really think that they put a lot of pacifications in place, a lot of, like you said, that there's no more tough love. So I think that when we were growing up, there was no ADD and ADHD and all that. That didn't exist. You know what I'm saying? It was, you got hit and you shaped up. You know, what I think that because of that, I think that that was a big part of like what you're talking about, that tough love and all that.
for
Where now
character
we
development.
have these said, alphabetic acronyms now.
Well, I think that, like most things, it was a huge aspect for character development, and you didn't get a chance to pretend. Either you were or you weren't, and if you weren't, then you had to strive to develop. You didn't get
Mhm.
a chance to just say that I feel something, and therefore, because I feel, therefore I am. It's like you actually had to put forth the effort to become. So you, as somebody who was an athlete, you played football for the longest. Just like I know, that it's just like, if you didn't go out there and perform on that field, like, don't let the game be jagged because you didn't block. Don't let us have lost the game because you were the one that was the hole in the defensive line.
Mhm.
Regardless of that, one team, one body, one mind, it's like everybody had to hold themselves accountable. And that aspect of things is like, it was highly emphasized, where we didn't hear a whole bunch of, at least I could say for myself, I didn't hear a whole bunch of, what are they teaching you guys in school. Now you got to mind yourself, I was in foster care from seventh grade to high school, and a lot of the life lessons that I got were, when you get out here into the real world is not going to treat you like a victim. They're not going to treat you like a special case. So I'm not going to give you any different. I'm going to treat you the way that the world is going to treat you. And you have to develop the character and understanding and the thick skin to know that when you get out here, if they're going to fire you from a job, they're going to fire you. They're not going to take your circumstances into consideration. If a woman is not satisfied with what you produce, she's going to leave you for a better option.
That still happens today.
It does, but is it being emphasized? You have to
Yes.
understand that a YouTube guru is telling you this. Phil Jones and Midas with the King in the front, let's go, is telling you this today, where it was mom and dad who was telling you this in our generation. It was the uncle, it was the friend of the family who was telling you this back in the day. When you used to have that uncle that wasn't your uncle, but it was like your dad's best friend or your
It was
mother's.
a friend of the family for
Yeah,
sure.
like, your uncle had a best friend that was like an uncle, that everybody knew him. He was the neighborhood player, whatever the situation was, and he would be trying to kick you down the information. I remember, and it's like, I hope I don't catch nothing for this, but My foster father had a friend named Bradley. Bradley was you could just tell in his mannerisms, his demeanor, everything. I mean, he's just a player. He was like the black boomhauer. He was on it. I mean, everything about him was just like just literally you could just tell like he was one of them people that is like you didn't really understand it, but he literally was one of those guys that had that it factor. Like I can just tell that when a woman see you walk in the room, it's just like, oh, it's him.
Mhm.
And it's like, his charisma,
Yeah,
his everything,
I
his
got an
energy.
uncle like that.
I mean, he was just he
Don't
was
understand a word he say.
no, I mean, because like regardless of the language thing, I don't want to get that
No, I'm
confused.
just saying that the boom
Yeah, I
hours,
mean,
like I
it
got
was
that
just
over
like
here too.
when he started telling you stuff, it's just like he walk in the door, and it's just like, yo, what up, pimp? What's going on, baby? Like, and it's like his energy was just like it was on a whole nother frequency, and you didn't really understand it. But it's like you see a lot of the gurus and stuff, they are marketing with the same tactic that this man's natural charisma was at. So when he would start mentioning stuff and when they would be sitting, when the guys was sitting around, and again, it's like that's the other thing that we had is that we had old heads that we sat under. You had God
So
time.
let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So you had back then we had community, man. So everybody on the block was mama. Everybody on the block was daddy. Everybody on the block, you know what I'm saying, looked after each other, watched each other, raised each other. I could go over here and you know what I'm saying? Again, the way I grew up, man, I could go over to a homie house and just walk right in. Hey, what up, mama? What up, dad? Same thing over here. My crib was the it crib. Everybody was at my house, you know. And we had community back then. We there was a lot of togetherness and there was a lot of cooperation back then. Everybody, this all the adults rather, they watched all of us. There was no getting in trouble. Well, you still got in trouble for some things. But as far as like going above and beyond, just doing absurd, things, it just didn't happen because just because you live way over here across town, somebody over there way across town know mama and daddy. Or they know somebody else in that area that know mama and daddy. And that information is gonna get back. It was just that tight niche like that.
Well, I
So
think I think a lot of it was the fact that respect was highly emphasized.
respect was highly
Certain things
emphasized.
that you just didn't do. You didn't curse in front of your elders. You know what I'm saying? It's like I like to tell people the story of us being the last generation of where the neighbors put their foot in your behind and then bring you home to catch another foot when you get there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that last generation of you had to actually be mindful of what you did, where you did. Certain things you didn't do solely because of the fact that it would have a negative stain on your family's name.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It, what I'm saying, it was hugely important to not bring shame to your last name. And it's like I think that we get so far away from the legacy traditions of making sure to keeping yourself on point that is just like it's very individualized now. Whereas at one point in time in history, it was very much about understanding that the effects of the decisions that you make had a bearing on everybody. It wasn't just you. Your mother had to go show her face in the community. When she go to those PTO meetings, when certain things happen, the stain of the decision that you made is lingering over her or your dad or whomever every time that they walk out the house. So I think that that was one of the things that was just like respect was just at a completely different level. It was a lot less of this me, me, me. I'm my own individual. I am lion, hear me roar. It was more so about, hey, man, I don't think I could do that with you. Like, wow, man, my parents would kill me, bro. Like, I'm gonna have to pass.
Mm-hmm. It was actual thought put into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you sit here and you look at things, and it's not to say that everything was roses and bubbles, not to say that the murder rate wasn't off the chain back in the '90s. It's not to say that a bunch of things was not that they weren't that they weren't bad or that they didn't have their own negative attributes. But I do believe that because of the fact that a lot of the stuff that we had to deal with, we didn't have so much perspective on everything. So the chief perspective came from who you value the most. So a lot of your mentors were people that you could reach out and touch. It wasn't some guy on the internet giving you information. It was somebody that you could pick up. Dean Phillips. Hey, can I talk to you for a minute? It's somebody I can go sit down in the room and have a conversation with you one on one, and I know that you're gonna tell me maybe not what I want to hear, but you're gonna tell me what I need to hear.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing. Confrontations. It was all face to face. It wasn't drop your location. It wasn't ping this and ping that, and it wasn't none of that. It was if you had an issue, you literally had to pick up a landline, a wire that plugged into your house, and you had to phone that person, either talk it out, hash it out, or y'all set up a date of when y'all was gonna make that happen. You know, and I missed that part too, where it's like there's no talking anymore. You know, personally, you know what I'm saying? Coming from a personal situation to where a simple conversation that could have took place, and instead of just having a simple conversation, 10 years was lost. 10, 15 years was lost. When all it took was just, hey man, what the hell is going on? You know, so we definitely have moved far away from being able to uh, have normalized confrontations or beneficial confrontations to where like minds are coming together to hash out, okay, I misunderstood that. I thought you meant this by that because the way that came off sounded, whatever. Okay, cool. All right, we straight now. You know, but if we had to do that, then we had to do that. It
Well,
wasn't a lot of yeah, it wasn't a lot of guns, man. Like back then, you had to know how to fight. You had to know how to throw hands.
well, I want you to take into consideration. Let's just go back to the example that you gave just a minute ago. You have to understand that there was a whole lot of media influence that played into a lot of those issues as well. Because the activity that you took place in real life also had a bearing on what you did in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
When I mentioned about the 80s and the 90s and then how our generation is so significant is because of the fact that we were the rise of there was no such thing as a influencer. There was no such thing as an internet celebrity. There was no such thing as an overnight. We saw that with the Cassies and the Sean Kingstons and I guess you could say the Drakes, and we saw that happen in our generation with the MySpace era when it came down
Yeah.
to musicians just being discovered off of a song that they had posted up on a website. That wasn't a thing until our generation came around. So a lot of people being mindful of what they were posting online or what they would do for shock value, the things that they would say. Like you have to remember that we are pre-YouTube.
Yeah.
You and I were having a conversation about YouTube being a plugin that was available on MySpace at one
On
point.
MySpace, it wasn't even a website yet.
Yeah. So we have to take into consideration the fact that the whole concept of internet beef, you had chat rooms and blogs and stuff long before you had world star hip hop. So an entertainer had to have PR for you to know what's going on with them, for you to even care. So if they wasn't on MTV, or if they wasn't on BET, or you didn't see them in rotation on 106 in Park Cedars World, whatever the situation was, Planet Groove, whatever we had, if you didn't see them in rotation, like it's amazingly when I talk to like the younger generation is just like I have to remind myself that they have no idea that Shaq was an MC.
Oh yeah,
They
he
had
got
no
songs
idea
with
that
Michael Jackson and everything.
Shaq and Kobe actually threw tracks at each other.
Yeah.
They had no idea about "Can't Stop the Rain" with Shaq and Biggie.
Hmm.
Arguably one of the greatest Biggie verses ever written, but that's neither here nor there. It's arguably the greatest verse of all time, if you really want to nitpick. But
I don't know. I think Last Days is his hardest verse. No, 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 no. Notorious Thugs.
nah, he got smoked in that. Good verse, but he got smoked. He got smoked. Like anybody
He
who jumps on the feature with Bone Thugs or Harmony got smoked.
he
Anyway, I
got
don't
smoked
want to lose
like
this.
crazy. That was it.
No, 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 no.
That was it. But
Busy,
yeah, Last Days. Yeah, Last
Busy
Days.
was
He
smoking
definitely
fools
went
too.
in.
Let's not act like he wasn't. No, but anyway,
Anyway,
I don't want to lose
yeah,
focus.
yeah, 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 yeah.
This
90s
nostalgia.
music. Just saying.
Yeah, it's nostalgia. We in nostalgia mode. But one thing that I do say is that dialing it back a little bit is the fact that there was this conflation between the internet world and the real world that we started to discover in our generation. That creating this image, the fake thug, the creating the image that you didn't live. We were the generation of if you talked about it, you had to be able to verify that you were that thing in real life. I couldn't go online and say certain things or do certain things and not. And you catch me in the street and it's just like, okay, well, dude, where's that?
Right. Right. That was real prominent back then. You really had to be what you said you was online.
Yeah, so it's like at the end of the day, it's like you could see in the reflection of like the music of our generation. What Jay-Z say is like, damn, Blade boy, what's the hum at? Those ain't Rolex diamonds. What you done to that? Where's the hum at? Like it's just like it was very reflective in the times that we came up in that there had to be a level of authenticity about what you did. Otherwise, you didn't talk about it. You didn't deal with. You didn't do it. You couldn't say something. I couldn't say I was from the street, or I couldn't make certain type of music because somebody ultimately would G check you. Because the dudes who were doing the practitioners of those things were authentic. They were who they were for real. So if you did something and you blew up off of it, then guess what? Yo, I like your style. Let's do whatever. First thing I want to do is I want to come to your neighborhood and I want to see how you live. If you
Yeah.
can't validate that for me, and I come and I see that your life is really roses and bubbles, then what happened? Your credibility is shot. You're dead. Your career is over. You have nothing else to talk about.
Yeah. That was big back then where, artists would come in town and roll with you before they actually did the song. Validate who you are, verify who you are, and then the song came, came along. But today, I mean, just looking at Takashi. All right. Man, I ain't gonna say I feel bad for anybody that didn't, go through the 80s and 90s, but man, it was really awesome, man. And the way of life was totally different. Um, you had to go outside. Like back then, not being able to go outside was punishment. Not taking your phone away, not taking your Nintendo away. Like Nintendo was cool, but not being able to go outside back then, that was punishment. Not being able to go play football, not being able to go hang out with your friends, like any of that, like just going to the outside world cut off. Yeah, dude, that was awful.
All right, I apologize. They're doing construction in my neighborhood, and they just started getting with the stuff.
No, you good. You good. I was just, saying, just filling in some blanks, telling them that, not being able to go outside back then, that was considered punishment.
Oh, baby, listen. When you tell me I couldn't go outside, because the thing is that like prior to the cell phone, right, or prior to everybody having access to the cell phone, it's like it was the equivalent of missing cartoons on Sunday because I mean, on Saturday morning. Because
Saturday,
you
yeah.
knew when you got to the schoolyard, everybody and their mama was going to be talking about it, and you didn't want to be the lame dude who didn't know what happened on X-Men. You didn't want to know what.
Mhm. Yes.
You didn't want to be the one who was out of the loop. Not going outside for us was like, I think it was worse than taking the tablet or the cell phone away from the modern kid
Yeah.
because there was no instant gratification. Those moments that happen, those are memories. So there's things to where it's like when I would leave from where I was, I would come and drive or ride my bike over to where everybody else was at, and everybody's meeting up at the park, and it's like that incident that happened, that fight, that it was a once in a lifetime moment. It happened, and it was like, man, you should have seen it,
Yeah.
man.
Once it's over, it's over.
Yeah, like
There was no
it's a
recording. There was
one and
no
done.
throw it on World Star. There was none of that. You
Yeah,
had to be there.
the first time that you jumped, like back when the BMX bikes and stuff, like what I'm saying, somebody popping a wheelie and pay, like, oh, you should have seen. He was, and it's like it was very minuscule, but because of the fact that we were relegated to our experiences meant everything to us. So you didn't have the luxury of knowing what it was like to be able to go online and just replay a moment over and over and over again. You had to appreciate it. So you did your homework. You made sure that everything was in place because when I want to go outside, first question is your homework done? Yes.
Yes.
All right, go ahead. There
Mhm.
wasn't like we wasn't DNF students. That wasn't
No.
even heard of. What do
No.
you mean you behind assignments? I would not be behind assignments. I'm not taking homework home on the weekend. You know why? Because I need to be outside.
Yeah.
I don't need
Yeah. It
nothing
didn't
getting
exist.
away.
It didn't exist.
Yeah. So when you sit there and you look at it, I feel like the sense of responsibility, the sense of self awareness and self accountability in our generation was different up until a certain point, just because we had things to look forward to. If you had friends and you had a circle, regardless of what social status you were in, if you had a circle of people, there was nothing that there was, let me tell you something, all right? Even when I was doing my absolute worst academically, I was never on punishment for grades. That just was something that was not happening. Like, oh,
Hmm.
well, saying I'm underperforming in school because of this, because of that. And I try to tell people, like, listen, let me just be straight with you. I was in somebody else's house because my parents had an issue that they couldn't control all through middle school and high school. So when I see children now with all this ADHD, I'm like, dude, I don't understand it. I'm not denying the legitimacy of it or what it does or why it does. What I do know is the fact that until you are sitting back on the edge of your bed day in, day out, in school, out of school, wondering if your mother is still alive or if she had a heroin overdose or if you ever gonna see her again and your brothers and sisters and the last time you seen your niece and nephew, until you know what that's like, I don't want to hear about your ADHD.
Yeah.
And that's what I was dealing with at 12 and 13 years old, trying to navigate myself through. So it's hard for me to empathize and sympathize with these situations. And, naively of me, because the fact that it's like there's so much more information, so many more your neurons are being attacked because of the frequency of information that you have. But there's nothing that I could think of worse plaguing you than your own imagination not knowing what's going on and creating these things over and over and over and over in your head. and for your caseworker to tell you that you're no longer able to see that one sister or brother that you were able to keep in contact with because they smoke marijuana and they think that they're going to be a bad influence on you. And it's a lot to that because I didn't have the distractions. So that's all that I could think about all day. And then I worked a job from sophomore year. I turned 16 January 19th of 2002. In February 12th, I had my first job and I ain't never not worked. Still ain't bring home no bad grades. Still was outside with the homies. So again, I don't necessarily understand those things.
Yeah, I mean, like likewise, and it's like you know
You
what
had
I'm saying.
two
As
jobs.
three.
House
I've been
B,
working.
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, I've been working since 12, like doing the paper route with the Chicago Sun Times, and I
Mhm.
was running my own little stand and all that. Uh, Playing football, basketball, like I did all of that all at the same time. Still never brought home bad grades. So, we were just built different, man. You know what I'm saying? Failure was not an option. It wasn't glorified. It wasn't idolized. You had to be something. You had to be about something.
I mean, it was so crazy to the point to where it's like when you really, and even just having the conversation, just thinking about the fundamental differences of what life was like for us coming up. It's like I won't necessarily discredit any of the things. It's just the fact that it's like most things to where when you look at those people from our generation who they were more affluent or they were given more access to more things that they never had to actually earn, and how a lot of those people turned out. It's just kind of like we have a whole generation of those guys now. That's the norm. Is that everybody has the luxury of a cell phone without the
Hmm.
accountability of monitoring your usage. Like even the schools. Like my daughter doesn't get paperwork anymore. Everything is online.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of monitor,
yeah. So now it's like
hold on
how
real quick. Speaking of monitor,
good.
like back then, TV, you didn't have 24/7 access to TV. Like TV turned off at a certain time. You saw MASH come on, and when MASH went off, you heard the national anthem, and all you got was snow on the screen. There was no more TV. That was it. But like you said, the frequency of all this information, and you just getting bombarded with all this info, I mean, we're living in an information age now. Like you just getting overloaded.
I mean, at the end
So
of
I
the day,
just want to
it's
bring that up. How like man, like TV used to actually cut off.
I would tell anybody, like, dude, you need physical books because you can't retain information without doing it. You need physical math because you need to feel the math problem and following the steps on the page. You need to because there's a relationship between actually doing the work. If I give you multiple choices and I know that I can eliminate two of those choices out the gate, and there's a 50-50 chance throughout an entire test, I'm not learning nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not learning anything. And the whole thing about it is the fact that you ask these young kids today about the Pythagorean theorem, you ask them about the quadratic formula, they can't tell you nothing about it. They can barely multiply.
Man,
A lot of
man.
these, a lot,
Speaking of that,
a lot of these
speaking of
teachers
that, I
they can
saw a
barely
video.
spell. They don't
Speaking of
understand
that,
grammar and phonics and being able to understand why you use the semicolon versus why you use the comma. They don't know. They have no idea.
but they don't want to know.
They don't even know cursive.
No, they've been took that out of school.
But what I'm saying is that in our generation, the fundamental, like you used to get graded on handwriting,
Yeah,
on your
you did.
ability to
Yes,
present
you
a
actually got a
legible
grade. Yeah,
piece of information. You know what I'm saying? It's like you didn't get a pass for mediocrity.
Yeah, you got graded on how legible your writing was. Yes. Hmm.
You know, and I
Speaking of multiplication and math, though, like it was a video that went viral where this young lady was running around asking people, "You got 5 seconds. What's 11 times 12?" Nobody knew.
you know, I mean, there's something to be said for the fact that you don't use it in your real life. And we have to also take into consideration that professions are much different now than what they were back then. I mean, even what you could aspire to be back then. There's no there was no such thing as social media. So I couldn't even open my mouth to say I'm aspiring to be a social media influencer. It didn't exist.
Hmm.
You know, so it's like even with the tools and techniques that I use to do certain things, those things don't exist. It's like the teacher's aid doesn't exist. They're no longer there. We have created a society to where we a la carte life. Every aspect of life, we have found a way to strip it down to its bare bones and a la carte it. Overweight, I got 50 different ways for you to try to lose weight. I'm gonna sell it to you in an easy wrap up package. At one point in time, I remember like how you have your gluten frees and your oh let's this type of diet. That's time you want to burn fat, and then like how you have the social media influence and stuff. You remember you had Suzanne Summers and um, what's her name, the Decker girl, Jesse James Decker or whatever. So where it's like they would have these fitness supplements and aerobics and stuff like that in the infomercials. So I mean, it always existed. It's just that how it was packaged and presented was a little bit different then than it is now. And it's like you didn't get bombarded with it again. It's like at 1 o'clock in the morning, why are you even up? Why are you watching Ty Lopez at 1 o'clock in the morning? Place these tiny little ads into the magazines and stuff, and just tick the markets and stuff, and boom! Before you know it, you can be on a yacht like me with all the fancy stuff. And like, why are you even awake? You got to be at school in the morning. Get up, go your butt to bed. Don't let us see that light on outside of your door in the middle of the night.
Oh man. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You under the blanket with your Game Boy.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't hear Mama come in the room. Boy, give me that goddamn.
Oh man, hold on, Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue.
Go to bed.
No, all I can say, man, for sure, is that you have to look at things in perspective. And the only perspective that I say is the fact that I don't take anything away from this generation. What I do say is that this generation has its share of challenges, as we did as well. And the differences between those and ours is the fact that we watched the bridge of the difficulty being created. We saw it as technological advancements, where now it is just distractions because the discipline the discipline is not there. So whereas if you had a home computer, you were miles ahead of everybody else. If you had DSL, you were miles ahead of everybody else. Now you're in a place to where everybody got 4G, 5G, and they walking around with it leisurely. You have access to everything terrible for you at a moment's notice. There's absolutely no limit to the amount of access that you have to everything that you don't need. And that's where a lot of things play out is the fact that we start to look at life from our generation. We start to understand why the people from the generation prior to us used to say the things that they used to say about us. You guys are spoiled, you guys have this, you guys have that, y'all don't know what hard work is. Well, guess what? If y'all felt like that about us, then y'all must really feel that way about your grandkids because their lives on easy street.
Yeah, but at the same time, you can't get mad at a road that you pave. Like the whole purpose of you paving a road and flattening it out and putting the blacktop and all that on it is so that that road is easy for us to drive down.
You have to
Like I
you have
don't understand that.
you gotta really again even put that into perspective. The guy that was working at the factory did not pave that road. He had no desire to work that because he was the last generation of that get up and go to the job for 30 straight years and retire and get your gold watch. That doesn't exist for us due to inflation, due to rising competition because there's more women competing for the same jobs, due to a myriad of different situations that we have in this generation that was not a factor then.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
It's easy to look at that situation to be able to say, oh, well, you guys have it this way, that way, the third, when the obstacles that are in our way are not the same. You didn't have CEOs who made exuberant amounts more than your baseline employee. You didn't have a situation where the amount of money that you brought in versus the average cost of your basic necessities like bread, gas, milk, eggs, so forth, where the gap between you earning $10 an hour and going to buy a loaf of bread for less than $1.85 versus now you're making $10 an hour and bread is $4. So realistically, we cannot compare those things adequately because of the fact that the thought process is very jaded. The one thing that is consistent that bridged over is the fact that whatever it is that you want, you're going to have to work for it. The one thing that is missing from this generation and that generation, which we are the bridge for that generation, is there's got to be an easier way to do it. So this generation
Make
is,
the money.
huh?
The easier way to make the money, or easier way to do the work.
The easier way to do it in general. That everything is looked at as an opportunity to find a lazier, easier way to accomplish the goal. That, man, I want to be a millionaire. How do I be a millionaire? This generation wouldn't even, it did, the opportunity for a viral YouTube video was not a thing. It didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Ad partners, influencer, it didn't exist. So if you, and I'm gonna say this, let's look at our parents, and their involvement in this thing that we're building. In their world, as 60 something year old people, this doesn't really exist. It's cool, it sounds fun,
Yeah, they know it's here, but
but it's not serious.
not to them. No.
No, it's not. It's not going to be serious. You're not going to tune into every single episode. You're not going to be actively involved. You're not going to pay attention to it until some cataclysmic change. Oh wow, that's real. Wow, is that a check from YouTube? What is that thing right there? Is that the plaque for 100,000 subscribers? Oh, because they can't fathom the thought of it because their worldview is get up and go someplace and bring the money back. That you don't if I can't feel my money in my hand, it ain't real.
Yeah, yeah. That is so old school. That is such an old school way of thinking, man.
Yeah, but I mean, but it's a sign of that generation. Whereas we were a generation that pretty much got introduced to crypto. Well, guess what? Our children's generation may be doing business in crypto
Yeah,
officially. We may be the last generation of cash. We may be the last generation of debit or credit, whereas everybody in our children's generation is going to be walking around with a cell phone and a crypto wallet and just tapping stuff and getting paid. Cybersecurity is going to be a bigger profession than law. Whereas I don't need somebody to interpret the law. I need somebody to protect my crypto wallet. I need somebody to be able to. I need a somebody who can access a crypto wallet that I lost the passcode to. So that guy now or that individual is going to be more valuable. Who can get me access to my 13 Bitcoin that I lost the password to? That person is going to be way more valuable to the world than the policeman.
Crypto asset manager.
Yeah. So now when you create a profession out of being able to recover lost passwords for crypto wallets, well, guess what? That's going to be the next $1 billion idea. And it's going to come from a hacker.
It might even come from Chat GPT.
It may
They now they working on auto GPT.
I mean, you never know. But that's what my point is the fact that we're looking at a time to where whatever the next big innovation is going to be, whatever the next Amazon is going to be, we're going to age out of it. We're not going to see it. We're not going to understand it. There's a very few of us that's hip to what's going on right now. And there's a lot of us that's in fear of AI. We're scared of AI. Oh my God, AI. Oh no, the zombie apocalypse is on its way. And the kids are sitting there looking like
But you know what? It is getting to a point to where now have you actually seen uh Zuckerberg's like full introduction to Meta and the AI and everything
yeah.
that's behind Meta? Dude, it looked like me and you are sitting here talking back and forth, having this conversation. That's how realistic his Meta AI looks. And with that being said, there's rumors about how, like in the future, when we're talking to psychiatrists and doctors and things of that nature, they're going to be able to respond fluently as if you're talking to a real person, and they're going to look like you're talking to a real person, but you're talking to AI.
At the end of the day, the whole thing is, and the fear with AI is that the human experience is going to become obsolete.
Wait, repeat that.
I said the fear is that the human experience is going to become obsolete.
No.
Well, again, I said this is the fear. So, to somebody who lives more of an opportunistic lifestyle, opportunistic mindset, is looking
Yeah.
at saying, they're saying, well, since the cheese is becoming the programmer, that I need to start focusing more on becoming a programmer than being a waiter.
Yeah.
I don't need
When
to.
the
I don't need
cheese
to be worried about being a plumber. The plumber is going to be replaced by a machine. So I need to learn how to program the machine to do the plumbing job.
Yeah, like I said, when the cheese move, you move. So if the technology or if a particular industry is moving towards AI, then it will behoove you to start learning how to either debug that AI, produce more AI, transport the AI, anything dealing with it at all in any phase of that project. You need to be involved if you're going to want to eat. If you want to be able to feed your family. We're moving into a society to where you have no choice but to be a nerd. Period. You either going to be a engineer, a programmer, some type of analyst, anything dealing with technology. If you're not that, you're not going to eat. Period. You good?
Yeah. It's just, when you take the time to think about this, one of the few things that I think that is very interesting, to say the least, is the fact that our generation is going to eventually get to a place to where we don't get it. And that's one of the natural progressions of the generations, is that the generation prior to us, they don't get it. They don't understand. They're not trying to understand because
Right.
people are still eating doing what they did. But if you
Yeah.
go to the days of the coal miner and the factory worker and stuff like that, when that became obsolete, when the railroad worker and everything, when that stuff started to bust, when a place like Detroit, Michigan went from being a 2 million plus city of people to a city of roughly 200,000, when places like East St. Louis and various other places started becoming ghost towns because there was no more money. When Gary, Indiana became a ghost town because there was no more money in it. When you had all those people who stuck around because maybe it's going to come back and it never came back, and you're looking at 40, 50-year poverty because what it was, they never industrialized, they never modernized, they never got their thoughts together. Even when you look at certain towns in downstate Indiana, downstate Illinois, north and downstate Florida, to where the chief economy is prison.
Mm.
So when those guys come up, it's like, okay, well, the dream is to work at the prison. It's not to leave and go discover what's going on in the big cities. It's not to go and find out what technological advancements live outside of my borders. It's to go and work for the local economy.
I'm finna do a screen share real
Okay.
quick, Mike. Um, can you see it? And I want to show this because I want to make a point.
It's a little blurry.
Uh, I only see me and you on the screen.
I see the whole thing, the whole enchilada. Let's see. Yeah, whatever you showing the resolution on it is bad.
Is that better?
No, it's actually worse now that you blew it up. It's like it's just a very bad resolution.
All right. It's not on the screen anyway. I only see me and you.
No, I see it very clearly.
But I'm telling you on my end, I only see me and you. I don't see the screen.
Send me the link.
What in the world is going on? Now you're frozen on my end. But mm, that's not good.
I'm not exactly sure what just happened, but I think he probably left out to come back in. Give us a couple seconds. Go ahead and work out that technical difficulty. This is one of the things about going live, everybody, is the fact that you're gonna have
It happens.
bugs
You
and
know.
kinks that we got to work out. But we'll be back after these messages.
All right.
All right, give me a second.
And I really want to show this because it really drives home and brings home the point of yes, now I can see it. All right, cool. All right, what you looking at are 3D printed houses. Okay, we are moving into an industry to where click on that first one, that first picture right there, where it actually has like the actual 3D printer machine over the house. It's the very first one. This is what I'm talking about.
Let's see if I can blow that
We're
up.
we're getting to a point in our society to where if you're not on the mechanical side of things, if you're not on the engineering and programming side of things, you're not going to be able to eat. This house that they're building, and these houses are in existence and they're being lived in right now. These houses exist, 3D printed houses, no lumber, no studs, no none of that. So now the lumber industry is finna go down. Pretty much the only thing that's really gonna take place is maybe putting sod down, maybe a little bit of digging so it can do the foundation and stuff like that. But other than that, There's no nails, no screws, no shingles, no none of that. You don't need none of that. So you got all these industries that's going to get disrupted. And if you're not on the side, if you're not moving where the cheese is moving, you're not going to eat. So I just want to bring that to light. Like these 3D printed houses are being utilized right now as we speak.
I mean, that's fascinating information. I mean, I also believe that, along with these things, you have to take into consideration. One of the things about the reason why we chose the 80's baby, 90's raised is because there's fundamental differences between the way that we think. It's fundamental difference between the way that we were brought up and the way that we were trained to see the world. And with that, you have several different layers of people who are complacent with the way that things are, and some people who are miles ahead into where things are going. And regardless of which side of the fence you're on with the technological revolutions of the world, you have to always bear in mind the fact that we are in a place to where it's going to require us to be a lot more creative, a lot more understanding, that in order for us to raise the youth to be a more durable industrious group of people, we have to understand something that the previous generation didn't have to understand. When our parents were raising us, they were training us to be competitive against one another. Our children that we're raising, we're training them to be competitive against China, India, South Korea, Brazil, other emerging nations that are taking educating their citizens way more serious than we are.
Mm-hmm.
So we are not dealing in the circumstances of just raising children to be good people. You'll be the hungriest person with a good heart and good morals the world has ever seen. While the girl from China will be able to outperform you at every single thing that makes you feel special. She'll be able to code faster than you. She'll be able to process information faster than you. She'll be able to run circles around you, and that's because that was her basic level. She is the worst in her school, but she's better than everybody in America.
Mm-hmm.
Because the standards of education will be that much higher. And the standards of being able to process information, regurgitate information, and use that information to earn money will be that much higher. So we have to take into consideration that this is a factor. This is a part of what the rest of the world is going to be. And we have to be ready to look at the world from the perspective of where it really is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing some research, even more research, and I'm looking at 3D printed cars that are on the road right now, and being able to code a machine that can produce these cars, fix the machine that could produce these cars, you know, philanthropy and all that. Yeah, it's great, but what that got to do with the fact that, what I'm saying, moving into this 3D printing, like you can't 3D print philanthropy, because you got a good heart and you got morals, and you can't we're moving into a space to where you're not going to be able to eat because you got a good heart anymore. Like you need to be able to produce something.
A lot of,
If your philanthropy isn't providing jobs and learning how to use these machines and program these machines and fix and transport these machines, if it's not in that lane, you're not going to eat. No one's not going to care.
all right, we're an hour and four in. Let's go ahead and close it out.
So appreciate y'all rocking with us today. Make sure that y'all hit us up on the YouTube. He gonna post that link right there.
You can't
YouTube
force
Extraordinary
anything I don't want to do.
Men. Yes, sir. So all you got to do is take our newly updated communicator devices that we have today, scan that and go over to the YouTube channel. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and click the bell so you're always in tune when we go on live. Make sure you also hit us up on the Extraordinary Men Facebook group, and that is where you can talk to us directly. All these ideas and concepts that we're talking about, we have these conversations in the group, in the chat and everything, and then we bring it live to have a discussion with the world. So, so make sure you get in tune with us.
All right, again, as you stated, thank you guys for all your time and attention, for what y'all giving us for this extraordinary display. Oh, before I go, the first piece of extraordinary merch, we had somebody order one. This is a hoodie. If you notice that it has a shocking resemblance to the hat, I can't wait to give this to the brother that actually took the time to pay for it. Thank you so much for your support. I want to put that out there. That is highly appreciated for the time that you took to just show to say, hey, I want to support what you guys are doing. So can't wait to give this to that young man and let him try it on and send us back that Instagram photo.
Mm-hmm.
But
appreciate you. Salute.
That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys again for all your hard work, effort, and achievement. Make sure you guys subscribe to the page. Make sure you guys come see us everywhere that we are on social media. And yeah, that's about it. That's all I got for you. Peace.